Well, Becky, Russia's 117 billionaires control over $500 billion in wealth, the U.S. and U.K., hoping that cutting off Putin's money men could put pressure on him to back down from an invasion. Now, no names or specifics have been released on potential sanctions yet. The White House saying oligarchs in the Kremlin's inner circle who may be complicit in the government's decisions are, quote, vulnerable because of their deep financial ties to the West. Now, those who are sanctioned would lose any access to the U.S. financial system as well as to any assets under U.S. jurisdiction. Now, a bigger threat could come from the U.K. That has long been a haven for Russian billionaires looking to protect their wealth. The U.S. already has sanctions against 180 wealthy Russians. That came after the Crimea invasion in 2014. Metals billionaire Oleg Deripaska, he has seen his wealth cut in half since he was put on that sanctions list. Attention now possibly turning to three of the wealthiest Russians who have more extensive ties to the West, I should say. Roman Abramovich, he's the first. He, of course, owns the Chelsea soccer team. He's worth about $14 billion. He has owned real estate in both New York and Aspen. Then you have Alisher Usmanov. He was an early Facebook investor. He still owns stakes in a number of tech and media firms. And then Leonid Mikkelsen, he is worth about $28 billion. He's involved in a number of art museums in both New York and London. And Becky, when you talk to these folks or the representatives, they reject the term oligarch. They say their fortunes have come from running their business as well, and they have no ties or influence to the Kremlin.
So what is the specific threat, Robert? If there were sanctions to come, what would that mean? They'd take away the soccer team, take back the stocks that they own in some of these things? How would this actually work?
It's twofold. One is, as you say, they would take away their assets or any assets under UK or US jurisdiction. More an issue in the UK, where they have over $2 billion in real estate and a lot of assets from newspapers to soccer teams, et cetera. The bigger issue, though, is basically cutting off any access to the U.S. financial system or even the Western financial system for many of these guys, because they have large companies. They still need access to capital. They still need access to U.S. dollars. And so it's that banking system threat that's really hurt the existing oligarchs and those who could be on this next list.
We were talking earlier with Colonel Jack Jacobs, and he said that Putin has two constituencies. One of them is the oligarchs. The other is the Russian people. What would happen if this? I just kind of trying to play out the pressure points. If they did this, if they actually took away the assets, then what happens in turn to Putin?
Yeah, the pressure points is exactly kind of the debate about sanctions and the oligarchs. There's one theory that basically if you put pressure on the oligarchs, they will put pressure on Putin for him to back down. Many Russian watchers say it's actually the reverse, that the fortunes and power of the oligarchs comes from Putin. And so the idea is Putin's wealth is basically distributed or represented through these people, and therefore many say Putin cares about wealth perhaps more than he cares about power, or certainly as much as he cares about power. And so if these guys, maybe the 10 or 12 like Abramovich, are truly his money men and they hold a lot of his wealth, the idea is that by putting pressure on them, they'll directly get at Putin's own wealth, and that'll force him to back down. But I think the idea that these guys could put pressure on Putin himself to change his mind is a little bit, it's just not going to happen.
Right.